Okay. Hi, my name is Jonathan. I live in LA, more specifically like downtown LA area or Echo Park area. I currently work as a case manager for a company that does childcare services. So we're like a referral agency. I grew up in LA, basically my whole life. I'm like how old am I? I'm 27. That's how old I am. I have I used to live in the projects in East LA for maybe like a quarter of my life before I moved closer to downtown. And then from there I lived in roughly Huntington Park and Echo Park and like just that general area for the majority of my life. Um,
Uh,
that's a little bit about me.
Can you describe the neighborhood you grew up in and what Los Angeles looked like and felt like to you as a child?
So I grew up in roughly three different areas, but compared to now, all three were drastically different. When I vividly remember when I was about 4 or 5, being in the projects in East LA, specifically the Estrada courts is what they were called. There was a lot more like gang members walking around. There was a lot more police activity, but it was also very, I want to say, culturally heavy in the Hispanic culture. I would always see like, oddly enough, there was a few apartments that had like roosters outside, so that was pretty cool. Especially like the East LA City of Commerce area. Um, I remember there being a lot of like how do you say it, like street vendors. Compared to now, it's kind of dead. There even used to be a Kmart, which was really cool. When I was about 6, I moved to the Huntington Park area, which was also very Hispanic heavy. That was really cool because you would see a lot of like older cars. Like I guess you would say like the cholos that were trying to show off their hydraulics and like um, I don't remember what the word for is, but those really nice old school cars. Echo Park um, was also one of those areas that had a lot of culture in it. It's definitely changed a lot more now. It's become severely gentrified. I wouldn't say for the worst. I think it has lost a lot of what made it special back then, but the community itself stays very strong. I know growing up, there was a lot of family owned businesses, a lot of bakeries, um, and you would see a lot of like there was like a bakery that was nearby that how do you say it? They would have a lot of fresh bread. But that place shut down and they turned it into an indoor rock climbing thing. So like I said, it's become gentrified, but uh, the 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 culture or the community itself is still lively. But I do definitely believe that a lot of original culture or culture that I grew up with has disappeared.
I agree with that. Okay. Were there any major events in LA, any social, political, cultural, even sports related, that stood out to you during your childhood or teen years?
Mm, I would say political. I there's one incident that happened in Echo Park where I believe I was a freshman in high school. It actually had just happened not that long ago from when I had returned home. So it happened on the same a day in high school after I got back from school. Uh, a couple hours, I want to say around 6 p.m. There was police and like there was like community outburst or outcry. I don't remember the exact wording for it, but essentially, a kid was shot on a corner because some person was just trying to steal his bike or whatever, and this kid was just trying to get home. And I think the whole issue, the political issue with that was that, if I remember correctly, the child that unfortunately lost his life was a Hispanic kid, and I believe the culprit was unfortunately of African American descent. So there was like the controversy again of like African Americans didn't get along with the Hispanic community. Um, so I know that caused a lot of issues here for a while. Um, so I mean that's one thing I remember. I don't really remember too much, but I do remember that that stood out a lot because they had the little memorial for the kid on the side of the street for a good while before they finally took it down.
Mm. I think you touched upon it a little bit, but how do you think that major event contributed to your neighborhood or even the city?
I do believe that there for a while there was a little bit of like tension between like definitely like I said the African American community and the Hispanic community in this area. Um, but I also believe that that had already been pre-existing because, to my knowledge, I was told that I wasn't allowed to go outside because, uh, in the early 2000s, if I'm correct, gangs were very rampant in Echo Park area. There was a lot of like stuff going on, so my parents really didn't let me go out unless the sun was out. Even then, it wasn't ever for too long. I had to be back by a certain time. So I believe that that added to what already existed, just adding more to the tension.
Hmm. Okay, next question. Um, this is a more recent event that I think has hit LA, not just the world, very hard. But what was Los Angeles like at the start of the COVID pandemic?
Uh, you know, I don't think I would be able to answer that unbiased because I want to believe that, or I know for a fact that I was part of a group of people that stayed home and really didn't go out during the pandemic, aside from needing to go to work. But if I did have to explain it, I would say everyone was scared. You wouldn't see anyone outside. Even like if you were going from Echo Park to just downtown or from Echo Park to Silver Lake, which is like neighboring by a couple streets, everything was empty. There was like nothing around. But I think that that was how society was during that time in general.
How, what do you think was, well, considering what LA looked like before as like a very major and diverse city, um, how do you think daily life changed for the community and for yourself during lockdown?
Mm, how do I think it changed? So compared to what it was like before to now,
Yeah, I
is
mean, like what, well, obviously like the whole world went into lockdown, but just from like your experience and observations, and it even counts if you just want to say that you primarily stayed home because that's what most people should have been doing. But just like how when you compare the two cities, because it looks very different after, like in that context, how did daily life change? Do you think for or like for yourself and for the community?
mm, I want to say it's changed in that we've definitely, or from what I've seen, just going to different establishments in the area, everyone's definitely gotten more, how do I say it, conscious of their surroundings. And I think that has to do partly with the pandemic because I remember back then, there wasn't really a lot of awareness in terms of like sanitation and stuff like that. But I've definitely seen like just even small businesses or even street vendors being a lot more cautious with like how they do business and how they handle their product. That's really the only major thing I can point out aside from you know me staying home like I'm supposed to. So I really can't give more detail than that.
Okay. Well, then what do you think COVID revealed about LA as a city? Like both like whether it's its strength and its struggles.
Revealed as a strength. Uh, I think COVID, not to sound unbiased, or to sound biased, but I feel like COVID showed that uh LA doesn't have his shit together. Um, I feel like that was made very apparent with the way COVID happened or how COVID was handled. Um, Granted, it was like that all across the country, but I felt like because of the pandemic, LA wasn't equipped or ready to handle a pandemic uh, with the size or the population size that we have. I felt like the way vaccinations were handled, distributed and stuff like that was handled poorly, and it didn't get better until like the last stretch of it. So I feel like that was a weakness during the pandemic, but definitely something that was improved later on. Um, and how do I explain it? I feel like it would become a strength now that we've experienced it in modern time. We're gonna be able to better tackle it in case it happens again with something else.
Mm, I agree. I mean, because for me, for this question, I personally had in mind of like there was a very like big racial violence movement going on, I think, during this time, especially to my community. So I feel like as much as there was a lot of fear going on with the disease in itself, there was a lot of fear that in the rare instance I had to go outside, I would be targeted in a different way, because everyone called it the Wuhan virus.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. I
Mhm.
remember the discrimination.
Yeah. How has LA changed since the pandemic ended? Are there things about the city that feel permanently different?
Um, I want to say the most notable thing for me is definitely seeing the amount of abandoned businesses and abandoned buildings. That is the most notable thing that I can think of. Um, there were quite a few before the pandemic, but it has definitely increased since. Even walking around downtown, you can see a lot more boarded up buildings, boarded up businesses, businesses for lease or buildings for rent, than there were before. And I feel like after the pandemic was a huge contribution to that.
Mm. What do you think, or how do you compare the city's culture, or what do you think makes it unique compared to other major cities?
Mm, hmm, that's a good question. Honestly, I don't think LA is unique in its own way. I believe that it's one of a handful of cities that how do you say how to explain it uh has an identity of its own. But then I can't even say that because I can say California or LA, sorry, is similar to a city like San Francisco, or San Diego. Um, so I like I said, I wouldn't say it's unique, in its own way. But I would say that it's different in that there's not many cities that are similar to it. Uh, that's that's all I can say on that.
Mm, okay. Oh, that's okay. That's an answer. How do you think our generation or like this generation of Angelinos will remember the city's history?
Mm,
Or maybe like what do you think LA's like legacy is?
I honestly believe that it's gonna be remembered with a lot of hate. Um, and the reason I say that is because this generation of Angelinos are, the ones that are still in school, or, you know, people like, unfortunately, where there's not much of an age difference between me and yourself, but it would be us. Um, and that's all you see now is just hate and anger. And I feel like that's what's gonna be left behind. And when you speak about what was LA in 2025 or what was LA in 2020, 2021, you're going to say there was fear, the pandemic happened, or anger, the current political, the, it's going to be definitely a sad moment in history, I believe. Um, with very few positive things to talk about. There are a handful of good things, but not as many as in the last half a decade where it's just been a lot of negativity.
Mm. Do you see yourself or your community as part of that history in any particular way?
Uh, Definitely yes. Not myself because I try not to get involved with it. I try to keep more to myself, but I would say my community has or will be a part of it or is. Um, like my cultural community, yes. And definitely my Echo Park community. I Echo Park community in that a lot of it is, like I mentioned earlier, very gentrified. There are a lot of I would say not social rights movement, but like people who believe in a lot of like social justice, I guess would be the uh, lack of better terms. Um, Sorry, give me 1 second. Um, for lack of better term, would be like social justice. They were affected. I know there was a lot of like well, not a lot, but in recent years there has been an increase in hate crimes to the LGBT community, and I know that is a very not dominant but frequent group or society, or I don't know how to explain that part either, without offending anyone, but it's a big part of the culture in Echo Park for sure. And I know that there was a lot of hate towards that, or like disagreement in the past couple years. Um, but also like my Hispanic cultural community as well, being with the most recent political climate, has also been affected with the ICE raids that are going on here in LA, and me being so close to downtown. Echo Park has been hit a few times with raids, even recently with Dodger Stadium being hit with ICE raid. So, uh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's getting scary. Do you see yourself staying in LA in the next within the next 5 years? And what about the next 10?
Uh, as much as I dislike LA, um, I will say that LA does have a spot in my heart just because this is what I know. This is where I grew up. And I feel like I would still see myself here in the next 10 years. Um, if not directly in LA, and definitely in the greater LA. Um, but I don't see myself leaving anytime soon, just because for me this is basically my home. No matter how bad it is and how bad it can get, it's something you learn to live with and learn how to maneuver, I guess you can say.
Mhm. Okay. And well, you don't, I know you have been expressing some strong negativity about the city, but what is one thing you can say that you are proud of from being from LA?
Okay, I just want to clarify, it's not negativity, it's criticisms.
Very strong
But
criticisms.
but I have some very strong criticisms for LA. LA can be definitely could be better, but I want to say one of the I think one thing I am proud of, or like one positive thing, my I guess the best thing I can say about LA is that we are very culturally inclusive, in that we are, how do I say it? We have just a diverse amount of cultures here, and that has honestly shaped all of LA. Like we have Little Armenia, we have Koreatown, we have Chinatown, Little Tokyo, uh, the historic Filipino town. There's just a lot of different cultures around LA, and you could definitely see it when you just explore. Um, it's honestly really nice when there isn't anything bad going on and you can just look around and see like what's historic and what's actually been left, like what's left from years past, or just old culture just anywhere, because even though it has become gentrified, there is still a lot of history around, and I do think that's one of LA's strongest points is just we do try to preserve culture as much as we can. Just unfortunately, we do have a few that don't respect it, so it's up to like whoever does respect it to keep it preserved. Um, but I do think that's one of the stronger points that LA has is just the cultural diversity.
Hmm. Well, thank you for your answers. That concludes your interview.